of our teams. Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Game Week 20, or specifically Double Game Week 20 team selection video. We will actually be showing our teams for this one, and for the crazy amount of work that it has been to try to set up this second video, you don't even know. We deserve a like and subscribe and everything that you can possibly do to support what we're doing here, because it has been probably close to an hour since we last the other one, just trying to go around and figure out how we were going to use a different recording site to do it because Zoom stopped working. So without further ado, I'm going to share
hopefully
my team. And hopefully this is something that you can see now. Can you see that on your end, Peter?
I can.
Okay. So here is what I have landed on for my wildcard double game week 20. As said in the last video, we have a full starting 11 of double game week players. So 22 matches on my slate for game week 20. And really, as of right now, the only thing I'm considering changing is potentially captaincy to a defender and maybe Teo Hernandez or Serie, but just seems wrong captaining a goalie. But we'll start from the back. And over the last 2 seasons of playing this version of Serie fantasy, I've had DeMarco in my team most of the time. And if you watched the last video, you would have heard me say this too, but it's almost I'm starting to find better to have a 90-minute player or defender, rather than a defender that will almost always get subbed off in the second half but has attacking threat. Just because clean sheets happen more often than defending returns, I would say, especially half clean sheets, where if you can keep the ball out of the net for a half, that's like the same thing as getting an assist. So a player like DeMarco, who I normally have as my second Inter player, if they get scored on in the first half, then he's probably coming off in the second, and unless he can find his way to the attacking return, he's not really getting a good score. It's going to be like a 2-3 pointer. But Serie, I'd say more rare than it is common that Inter concedes in both halves, especially against the likes of teams like Venezia and Bologna. So I've picked Serie to be my goalie. He is expensive. I can always downgrade if I need to. Suzuki is my keeper that is on the bench to back him up as a cheap option, who he himself has had a great season, great value for his price. I'm going 3 defenders, so 3-5-2 with this formation. I have Cambiaso, as talked about in the last video. Tougher fixtures, but maybe good defensively against Torino away and Atalanta away, so 2 away fixtures for Juve, which could be challenging. Teo Hernandez, I've landed on right now. I do think he will stay. 2 really good fixtures for Milan coming up, Cagliari at home and Como away. And the attacking threat, hopefully back in here to stay with the new manager. First Bologna player, Bukema, he's probably been one of the more reliable defenders on Bologna over the last couple of years. Tough matchups for sure. Hoping they can keep maybe like a half clean sheet against Roma or something like that. I'm not banking on huge scores, but a lot of points for playing. I'm saying if I could end up with like a 5 or 6 points out of Bukema, I'd probably be happy. 5 in the midfield, going Pulisic, starting out like I started the season. I don't think that yellow flag means anything. So good fixtures, good attacking threat, probably the top player on the team this year, I would say. So I could not keep him out of the side. This does come at the cost of Reindeers, who has been exceptional, kind of especially over the holidays, as Reindeers normally are. But I don't have him in right now, but I would not oppose anyone that did. Second Bologna player, so the team that I decided to go with only one was for Como, which we'll come up to, as you can see. Freuler has seemed to be the best bang for buck Bologna player that they have ever since they lost Xerxes, really. So I'm going with Freuler in my mid because I didn't want to pick an attacker for them, as I want my attackers to come elsewhere. The main 3 attackers for Atalanta this year have been Retegui, Lookman, and CDK. I didn't actually know where the injury situation lied with Retegui going into this, so I automatically just picked these two, and I'm pretty happy with how the team turned out picking these two. It would be pretty easy to get Retegui in by selling one of these, just because both of these players cost more than Retegui. And then Yildiz, the price point for the explosiveness is I just couldn't turn down as my second Juve player. He's probably the player out of all of these 11 that I think might get benched at the start of one of the games, but you know he's going to feature in them. And lastly, my attacking two are right now Captain Thuram, who's been known to score hat tricks against weak teams for sure, and he's probably going to have around 180 minutes, maybe I'd say between 150 to 180 minutes that he'll probably feature over these two games. That he can bang in a bunch of goals. Hopefully that form turns from Lautaro to Thuram for me. And the last one, I did want 11 double game week players, and if there's all our reasonings for it in the last video if you want to check that out. But I was going to pick one Como player. It probably would have been either, I generally am someone that goes with a cheaper keeper, although right now I'm not. Could have been Nico Pats. But I liked this midfield better. So I ended up landing on Quattrone, who actually has been relatively consistent throughout the season for Como. Tough fixtures, but I feel if he's going to be potentially playing up to 180 minutes, I could see him scoring a goal in that time. And as discussed in the last video, we'll definitely want to prove his worth against Milan at home. On the bench, like I already said, Suzuki, I am definitely going to want Di Lorenzo. He's probably one of the most safe options for the double clean sheet right now and comes with the attacking threat, playing 90 minutes every game. And lastly, my two Fiorentina players are Moise Kean and Dodo. Moise Kean has been amazing ever since I dropped him a long time ago, unfortunately. Just keeps scoring goals, and he's honestly getting multiple attacking returns more than he gets one. So I definitely have to have him in there, as well as Dodo. The reason I have two Fiorentina players is outside of the teams that are having a double game week this week, they're the only team also slated to have a makeup fixture at some point for when the unfortunate event with Bove occurred and the game with Fiorentina and Inter had to be postponed. So, and I used to have Guzens in here. Guzens has actually come off the bench the last 2 weeks, which is why I've decided to go with Dodo instead. And yeah, I think that's how I'm going to start. If Guzens starts starting matches regularly again, I'd probably prefer him because of his attacking threat. But this is the route I have chosen right now with captaincy on Thuram and vice captaincy. You know, I'm just going to change that vice captaincy right now to Theo Hernandez. Okay, and I'll confirm that little switch, and I'll leave it up to you, Peter. What have you got going on? And I will mark. This should be Peter's team loading up. There we go.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, a lot of similar choices to yours, but luckily some differences because I got to catch you in the table. So I need some points to come somewhere. Like I mentioned in the previous video, Vasquez from Empoli. Really like their defensive returns. I didn't go with 11 double game week players. I'm going to bank on a lowly Lecce side, giving Vasquez 2 halves worth of clean sheets to give him some solid points there. In the back, I went with 3 in the back. I went with Bellanova. He's been playing full 90s lately for Atalanta, which has been a pleasant surprise because for his price and his attacking potential returns, it makes him a pretty interesting defender. I'm going to hope and bank on that Juve game, them getting some goals, and he hopefully contributes. But I'm more so looking for Udinese. They should be able to get at them and have some offensive returns on top of some clean sheet halves. So he was a no-brainer for me. I did go with DeMarco. I considered what you were saying about him being pulled off, and I did consider Sommer. However, DeMarco can go and have a game where he has 2-3 assists to cap a performance where he had a half clean sheet. So even if he goes off early, that's a pretty big return. And like you said, against a Venezia especially, but also against Bologna, who might not provide Inter as much of a sterner test as some other teams, I think he can have a solid return. I just hope he plays the majority of those 2 games. Mentioned in the last video, went with Gatti. Banking on Juve getting some clean sheet halves out of those 2 games. And hopefully he does the forward bombing runs that you Juve fans hate, but in fantasy, us non-Juve fans are looking for. So hopefully he can get in on a goal or 2. That'd be really great to provide those returns. Then I did go with Reinders and Pulisic from Milan. I'm double down on those Milan midfielders. I'm going to hope that both of them combine for some goals. Again, like we mentioned, against some weaker sides. And the Conceição bounce should also hopefully keep buoying them with this trophy in the cabinet as well recently to get some goals and be positive and offensive. I mentioned in the last video, I've had Freuler for a long time now, the most consistent Bologna player for sure. Might not provide the high-end points at all times, but if he's guaranteeing you a minimum of 5 or 6 every single game, you'll take that all week. Now, Roma and Inter are going to be tough games, so we'll see what he can do. But hopefully even against Roma, even though their form's been better, maybe he can get a clean sheet half at least and maybe catch them out for an assist. That would be great. Yildiz, like we talked about, cheap price, and Juve should have some success at least in the Torino match. I think even if it's a low-scoring affair, finding a goal or 2, and you tap him to hopefully get involved with that. With his explosiveness, I like that goal he scored, like I mentioned, against Milan. Well, I didn't like that goal, but it was a positive sign in the Supercopa semis. And finally, my Como player in the mid, I did go with Nico Paz. Again, I just think Lazio and Milan are, even if they're primed to win those games against Como, they're bound to leak goals just based on the recent form. He has had some great returns in the last 3 games. You can go check out his points totals. He should provide some offense. And even if Cutroni's scoring, if he's the one assisting him, I'll take those points all day. Up front, stayed with Thuram. Going to bank on him like we talked about to find his form again with 2 very tasty fixtures for Inter, and I captained him as well. And then I am going to bank on Retegui getting in, scoring some goals, hopefully, to find his form again against Udine and Juve. He's actually been linked in the transfer market to big money moves to the Premier League. So I'm kind of hoping he gets back in form and kind of that kind of buoys him a bit, inspires him to keep playing. Because if he's going to earn a bigger move away, eventually he's going to have to score goals to do it. So maybe that'll inspire him to get back and find form scoring. And then on my bench, mentioned before, Svilar, I brought him in, not so much for this game week, but moving forward, I like what Roma's been doing, and he's a pretty affordable keeper to get those points. Di Lorenzo is a must-have at the moment. Keane, must-have at the moment. And I did keep Gosens. I did notice what you were talking about with Gosens not playing full 90s the last couple of games, but I think he's going to come back from that and start playing again. His attacking returns for Fiorentina have been so good this season, and they're pretty good for clean sheets too.
It was really weird because he did like come off 2 games where he had like either goals or assists, and then all of a sudden 2 random benching. So I didn't really understand what was going on there.
Yeah, unless it was a fatigue thing. I didn't look into that. I do think he's going to get back to playing though regularly, especially with a fixture against Monza and a non-double game week. So I'm hoping he plays 90 that week to just inspire keeping him in the future, and then that'll be a good sign for hopefully that future double game week. So that's kind of what I'm going with. Risking it a little bit with a couple of these decisions, but I got to be a little riskier to catch up to some people ahead of me in the table. So sometimes those risks pay off, but we're going to see.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing and being part of this again. Yeah, honestly, no, just looking at your squad, it looks pretty consistent. Like you can afford to take some risks when your players are going to be playing twice because one, it's just another 90 minutes they have to do what maybe they didn't do in the first game, and even just playing points, as discussed, are probably going to be enough to outscore a lot of players just playing once that even might get an assist or something still. So I think that's pretty good decision making overall. I'm looking forward to see which team does better. And yeah, I think I don't think we're going to spend an excessive amount of time going over this with the amount of extra time we spent kind of trying to just set things up.
Yep. Before we just wrap it up though, just want to throw out first big thank you for having me back on. Love doing these chats, especially talking about Serie A, but Serie A fantasy. You guys should like and follow the account. Daniel does a lot of hard work to prepare these videos for you guys. But I will leave you with a little tidbit. Just a little bit of news and notes for people following the app and Serie A, especially for those of us who are from the GTA in Canada or the Greater Toronto area. Keep an eye out in the next month or two. There could be a new player available on Serie A Fantasy. One familiar to all of us, a Lorenzo Insigne, leaving our beloved Toronto FC, it sounds like, and it looks like a return to Serie A on the cards. I actually was on Twitter, and I actually said this randomly to just a comment I was talking with someone with a little while ago about, oh, I could see him signing for a team like Como. And literally the day later, the report came out that they're interested in him. Small market, big name, Euro winner, Serie A experience, and apparently Fiorentina even interested in potentially bringing him in. So you never know. Lorenzo Insigne could be a player that people are looking at picking up in Serie A Fantasy in the near future.
Interesting. It'd be nice if Jonathan David showed up as well.
Yeah, that would be pretty nice for Milan, hopefully.
Okay, so we're going to call it there. Thanks again for everyone tuning in. Sorry that it had to be done in 2 different sessions, and that I think the quality of this one on Skype probably isn't as great as normal on the Zoom, but we'll make do with it this week and hopefully go back to things as per normal next week. Take care, good luck, and we'll talk to you again soon.